And that's A.I.D. volunteer program. In our studio today, we have 3 volunteers of this year's program, and they are Angela, Jerry, and Tiffany. So, Angela, where did you go this year?
I went to 明伦国中 in
where is it?
彰化.
彰化.
对.
Have you ever been there before this year's program?
No, I have not.
What's the impression of it?
It's
a village area, right?
It's very interesting. So we were bused to school every day because we lived in the mountains. So that was an interesting experience. I've never lived in the mountains before. We did a lot of hiking. There was a tennis court there. We lived in the area where they housed the athletes. So there was a lot of sports courts around for us. But the school, it took us about 15 minutes every day by bus. And we didn't really get to explore the area immediate around school. But when I first arrived at school, I was really shocked because it was gorgeous. I've never seen a school that has a little pond in the middle of the courtyard with fish inside and everything.
But how's the living condition over there?
Oh, the living condition, it's very different from what I'm used to because I live in the city back home. So it was interesting that I can't just leave the house and then buy something to drink or eat right away. And actually, it was really funny. One day we decided to walk down the mountain, and it took us 30 minutes to get down the mountain, and we ran directly into the highway. So we just walked ourselves back up the mountain. But it was really, it was a very calm experience.
It was a very small campus, right?
Yes,
it overlooks the mountain, or?
Yes, we lived in the middle of the mountain, so we could still hike up.
Okay, so how about you, Jerry? Where did you go this year?
I taught in Nehu Elementary School in Yuling County, and I've never been there before, and there are definitely a lot of mosquitoes. Like, we had over 100 mosquito bites combined between 6 teachers.
Okay.
So, I mean, the school is really small. There's only 60 students. And like
altogether?
Yeah, altogether. And 7-Eleven is like an hour away walking distance.
Which is good.
Yeah, so then, I mean, convenience stores aren't that really convenient anymore. So there's not much there. But then the rural schools allows us volunteer teachers to to be open to a new aspect of Taiwan, and allows us to realize that there are students who don't have computers at home and who have to walk everywhere they go. So it really opens our minds.
How about you, Tiffany?
My experience was pretty different from them because we lived in Luodong in Yilan. So it was like a town, not a big city, but a town. So 7-Eleven was right in front of our store.
There's a very famous night market over there.
Yes, night markets. And lots of stores. We like to go to the stationery store. And so, yeah, I think that all my students were either from Luodong or from small towns around. So most of them have computers at home. Like at the end of the program, I wanted their email addresses, and out of 15 students, only 2 of them did not have an email address.
I see.
So I guess they got to experience a new kind of lifestyle, but for me, it's pretty similar to home.
How many kids do you have to take care of?
So we've had a total of 3 classes, and so there are 2 of us teachers in charge of each class, and then each class had 15 students.
Okay. And when you first met them, I think they must be very shy, How do you have them to open up and try to accept you?
So the first day, we were actually the teachers recommended that we did not actually teach anything, but we just play games. So I think that helped. We played a game where they tied balloons around their ankles and then ran around and popped each other's balloons, but they had to protect their own balloon. And then they played a game with sponges where everybody got a little wet, which was great because it was hot outside, and I think they all enjoyed that a lot. And then the next day we combined games with learning English.
Angela, do you find the kids in the rural area or mountain area different from the kids in the cities?
Well, back in the States, yes, a little, but I think it's more of a cultural difference than the students coming from a rural area.
What's the most cultural barriers you face in the process?
Well, it's not difficulty, I found that the Taiwan students, they came into the classroom more obedient and more eager to learn. So there was I spent less time on trying to convince them that it's fun to learn, that they're here to learn. Unlike in my American classroom, a lot of times I have to kind of trick the students into, oh, this activity is a lot of fun.
So Jerry, in addition to the language barriers, do you also encounter this kind of cultural barriers between you and the kids?
Not that much, but I know that Taiwanese students are, well, I can say a lot more respectful in a way, because at the end of every class we have like a leader in the class who would say, stand up, attention, bow, thank you, teacher, after every class. And we didn't tell them to do that. It was just a habit that they got into.
Right.
And then whenever they see us in the hallways or anything, they don't have to, but they always say teacher hall. So it's just that idea of being respectful that their parents have taught them. So
were you allowed to use Chinese Mandarin to talk to the kids, or do you have to use English?
Well, we're recommended to use English as much as we can, because if you're explaining instructions to a game in English, they won't understand how to play. So you have to incorporate Mandarin, but use English most of the time.
What's the most difficult part in encouraging the kids to speak English?
I have to think about that. Well, I think so.
I think the vocabularies are very limited for the kids, right? How do they, use those vocabularies will be very important. But again, they only have a very limited number of vocabulary they understand. How to help them?
Well, I'll first start by explaining how we split into 3 classes depending on their level of English. So on the first day, they took a placement exam. And then I was actually teaching the class with the highest English ability. And so I think that for them, they actually knew a lot of vocabulary, and it was just a matter of practicing speaking. And so I just tried to, first of all, we would always be very positive. If they made a mistake, we would tell them not to worry about it and just to do their best. And I think that, like I said before, it's actually worked really well. Instead of expecting them to speak up in front of the whole class, to sometimes break into smaller groups and then let them discuss and practice speaking with each other. And then after that, my teaching partner and I would go to each group and talk to them in English, and that way they didn't feel so overwhelmed or shy, because they could just speak in a smaller group instead of in front of the whole class. But I did want to add something to the previous question, because I just wanted to give an accurate representation of the behavior, I guess, of the kids, because I think from speaking to them and to a lot of the other volunteers, there really was a variety of a big difference with behavior in different schools, I think, depending on the students' backgrounds. Because some of the students, I know, my students, I felt that they were overall pretty respectful. They also were definitely, or a little bit, as the Chinese would say, wan pi at times. They like to joke around, a bit naughty, but overall I found them respectful. But I know that in some places, some of, not me, but some people I know, some of their students were even more naughty and also sometimes even disrespectful. So I feel like this is such a valuable program, the A.I.D program, because we will go to all areas of Taiwan and just do our best to spend time with the kids, just do our best to help them, even if we face difficulties where some kids do misbehave. I think it's a precious program, because I think it's those kids who need it the most, because some kids their families just don't have much money, and they may have some serious problems in their homes, and they may hardly have enough to eat. Not my students were much better off than that, but in some places, in the more poor places, I think I just appreciate this program, because even in those situations, the volunteers are just going to do their best.
That's right. Jerry, you're still high school students, and you're teaching the junior high or even elementary school students. Do they see you as a big brother more than a teacher?
Well, yeah, I think the interaction is more like a big brother, little brother interaction, where during breaks they would pull on my shirt, drag me to various places. But I mean, you have to have that fine line between being a brother to them and being a teacher. Because if they keep on thinking of you as a big brother, they're not going to listen to you in class. So you need to set the rules and the standards first, and then like when it's time to play, then they can have fun with you.
Do you find it a difficulty of balancing the two, being a big brother and being a teacher?
Not for me, but I know there was a guy in our group who, like, the kids would not listen to him at all because they were the youngest kids. They were first graders, second graders. So they don't want to be in the classroom setting, and they would always, like, drag on his shirt and pull on his shirt. So then they had to call the teachers of the school to tell the kids.
Discipline the kids.
Yeah, discipline the kids.
Yeah. And how about you, Angela? And, being a, sister, to those kids, do you find difficulties in trying to making friends with those kids?
Not really, because I approach them as a friend, but I'm also a teacher. And it actually helped that I had a teaching partner because we were very different. So he's more of my teaching partner was more playful and very sociable. So I took more of a role as the sterner person in the classroom. So I held down the ground, and he went and did a lot of the playful side in the classroom. So I actually lucked out having such a good balance for a teaching partner.
So there's a team, in your group. In addition to the educational teaching in class, do you also have all kinds of extracurricular programs or activities with the kids? Or do you take the kids out of the school and have hikings and so on? Yeah, Tiffany?
Yes, we did have some activities. One day we just totally left school and took a field trip. First we went to a museum because Elan has some specialties, including making the wooden shoes and Muji. So after the museum, we went to a festival where we got to go swimming and play a lot of games. And that I actually really treasure that time because I really got to know my students more just by having fun with them. And we also did some activities. That was just a totally fun activity. It didn't really relate to learning English, but we did a lot of things that incorporated English learning. Like we took them to 7-Eleven and we broke into 3 groups, and we gave each group a little bit of money to spend. But before they got the money, I kept the money until I asked them what they wanted to buy and they had to say it in English and how much it cost and what flavor, and then I gave them the money. And we did play a lot of games as well.
How about you, Jerry? You also interact with the kids after class?
After class, some of them would stay and they would like eat dinner with us because they loved, I guess, hanging out with us a lot. But like during class, we wouldn't go anywhere because there's nothing around. But like we had a period where we made sandwiches. And so we used English and taught them vocab like ham, cucumber, cheese, stuff like that. And they would use that to make a sandwich, and then which they can eat right after. So they thought that was really fun.
I think it's a very good experience for the local kids to have access to the outside world, but it's also a new experience for you too. Many of you came back to Taiwan many times, but that will be the first time for you to go to the very remote areas in Taiwan. So when we come back, we'll talk about your personal experience of exposing yourself to a different parts of Taiwan. So stay with us. We'll be back after this few moments.